Hi, everybody. Welcome to this session on changing the workforce system. What will it take and where do we start? My name is Nancy Von Bargen, and I'm joined by my colleague, Peggy Ball, and we are both subject matter experts at the PDG Birth to 5 TA Center. Our format is first for Peggy and I to discuss a few of the latest national and state efforts to tackle the most challenging issues facing the field. We're also going to be introducing the workforce issues that are the focus of the 6 breakout sessions. Then in about 20 minutes, you will join one of the breakout sessions based on the topic area that you selected. And in each of these sessions, you'll hear some state stories of successes and lessons learned, and then you'll have the opportunity to share your own perspective. To get us started, I want to ask Peggy to share the latest information from the National Association for the Education of Young Children about their just released Power to the Profession Unifying Framework. Peggy, you are serving on NAEYC's Professional Governance Body Transition Committee. Is that right?
That's right, Nancy. Yes, it was a great opportunity to participate in this. Power to the Profession was a national collaborative that came together to define the early childhood education profession from birth to age 8 across states and across settings. It established a framework that articulates the career pathways, the knowledge and competencies, the qualifications, the standards, accountability, and supports and compensation to define the early childhood education profession. The members of this collaborative included representatives of labor unions and national organizations, including the National Association for Family Child Care and the National Head Start Association, and then associations representing teacher educators and elementary school teachers and principals, just to name a few. This collaborative guided a process to create the Unifying Framework for early childhood education profession with the input of thousands of individual educators and advocates and allies. Some of you probably participated in this. The transition committee that I serve on has the same organizations represented. We're developing procedures and protocols that will create a commission on professional standards for early childhood education. That commission will implement the Unifying Framework and work across long-term sustainability of the profession. Unifying is the key word. It's a single set of qualifications, pathways, and standards that were agreed on by all the major organizations in the field.
Peggy, did I also hear that part of the Power to the Profession initiative is to draft model legislation for states to use?
Yes, that'll be a part of the work of the governance body to help draft that legislation. Next slide. The Unifying Framework identifies the qualifications for 3 levels of professional designation that create a career pathway. It recommends moving away from all these different labels and roles that we've had in different states and by different organizations. So it will have 3 levels, Educator 1, Educator 2, and Educator 3, defined by the level of education to achieve that. They will be applicable to all settings and staffing and supervisory structures. Be great to have this instead of having to go from state to state and learn a new structure. A critical strength of the Unifying Framework is the commitment to a phased-in implementation that honors that the existing and future workforce cannot achieve these levels without the supports, the funding, infrastructure, and policies that will help them be successful. There's much more detail in the Unifying Framework, and we hope you'll take the time to review it. Nancy, I was also excited to see that the Alliance for the Early Success recent publication created a roadmap for transforming our nation's childcare system. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. If we go to the next slide, it is called the Build Stronger, a Childcare Policy Roadmap for Transforming Our Nation's Childcare System. And it was just released in September. And while it does acknowledge the immediate impacts of the pandemic, it also advocates for a stronger early care and education system emerging from the pandemic, where childcare, like public schools, is recognized as a public good and financed as such. Many national experts believe that some of the ideas in the roadmap may finally gain traction due to these extraordinary times where early childhood providers are being recognized as essential workers and as heroes. So the Build Stronger roadmap addresses 4 areas: increase access and affordability for all families, advance the early care and education profession, reform childcare financing, and build a better childcare business model. So you can see that they really all build on each other, and they all need to be a part of a comprehensive strategy. But for today, I'm going to focus on the second area, advance the early care and education profession, as that's our focus for today. On the next slide, so in this area, you can see that there are 4 approaches. Secure public investment, specifically for educators' compensation and benefits. Build educators' power through a unified voice. Establish policies tailored to support home-based providers' practice. And invest in educators' career and educational advancement, especially for educators of color and multilingual educators. I am so grateful that the Alliance prioritizes compensation as a cornerstone to equity and quality. Really, compensation just continues to be the 500-pound gorilla in the room. And we have got to do better, both for the teachers who have committed to this profession, but also so we can successfully recruit the next generation of teachers. It's important to note that the roadmap recognizes our efforts to build a childcare system that is stronger than what existed before the pandemic, but it'll only be successful if the system addresses the issue of equity. Early childhood educators, more than 90% of whom are women, and as you all know, are generally paid low wages with few or no benefits. And then educators of color are more likely to be at the lower end of the wage continuum, regardless of their educational level. So if you go to the next slide, here are just a few of the recommendations specifically on compensation. Develop a salary scale for early childhood educators and program directors, including benefits that's aligned with the professional designations in the state's career ladder. So the goal is for compensation levels to achieve parity with other professions requiring similar education levels and responsibilities. So for example, the Washington State Legislature created a technical work group which developed a salary schedule for early childhood educators. And there's been similar legislation passed in Connecticut. But even before the pandemic, the median wage for early childhood educators was close to the poverty line for a family of 3. Those who work with infants and toddlers experience a wage penalty of up to $2 per hour when compared with their peers who work with the preschool age children. And unfortunately, recent work to raise the level of education of the profession and increase subsidy rates has barely moved the needle on compensation. Secondly, provide bonus pay and healthcare benefits to childcare staff as part of the state's COVID-19 response. And recently I've been thinking, I would hope that teachers in early care and education settings would be a priority for the vaccine, just like public school teachers. implement temporary bridge programs such as wage supplements and tax credits to provide supplemental income supports to early childhood educators. One example is the Wage Supplement Program that's offered by 6 states. More than 30 states offer some type of statewide bonus program, with 26 of these state programs tying the award amounts to training or qualification levels, such as the Teach Scholarship Program. And lastly, use contracts coupled with increased funding to support meeting higher compensation standards. And we've seen more states using contracts to increase access for underserved populations, including infants and toddlers. So this really provides us with another opportunity to address compensation. So let's move to the next slide on education and training. Peggy, do you think we've learned some things about access to training as a result of the pandemic?
Yes, I do. I hope we have. Access to education and training has always been a challenge for our profession. How can people who are working, how are they able to access the education they need to help them do a better job? The pandemic may move us toward more online learning. That's what I'm hearing from states. Many states have developed their own online coursework. But for those who haven't, there's some national resources they can look at, including Better Kid Care through Penn State, the Department of Defense's Virtual Lab School, and the Individualized Professional Development Portfolio on the Early Childhood Learning and Knowledge Center website. So I'm looking forward to finding out from states what they have learned in using online training. We're also rethinking old topics in new ways. While we know that the basics like behavior and guidance will always be in demand for education, more recent challenges are driving the development of new coursework. We've become much more sensitive to trauma-informed care since we know what it does to children's long-term development. And we've also learned the need for culturally responsive care to help children develop fully. And we're looking at new approaches to family partnerships. And especially during this time of the pandemic, there is more emphasis on business administration practices that support the restoration and hopefully the strengthening of the fiscal stability of our programs who've suffered so much during this time. An issue that more and more states are focusing on is coaching and mentoring. Of course, this is even more difficult due to the pandemic since it normally would be face-to-face and on-site. But in the long term, we're recognizing that the better preparation is not enough for directors and teachers if they don't have that support to transfer their education to the classroom. And that's where coaching and mentoring comes in. Coaching models vary across states, and there's some cases they're used to support overall program quality, some cases to support individual teachers in their teaching practices for their role, such as infant and toddler specialist coaches. Most recently, virtual approaches to coaching are being used during the pandemic. Virtual coaching can reach teachers in more remote areas and can be used to coach multiple participants simultaneously. I'll be excited after this period of the pandemic to hear about states' experiences with virtual coaching. There's been a renewed interest also in the development of coaching competencies and credentialing systems, training for coaches, and policies that dictate the dose, duration, and intensity of the coaching experience, long a topic of lots of discussion. But Nancy, I'm concerned about all the investments we're making in educating and supporting our teachers, and that won't help us if we can't keep them. So maybe on the next slide, you can talk to us about that.
Absolutely. So this is from a recent report out of North Carolina titled Leaving the Classroom, Addressing the Crisis of North Carolina's Early Childhood Education Turnover. And they studied the reasons for high turnover rates. So as you can see here, the top 4 reasons are make more money, which we've just been talking about, professional growth, which Peggy has addressed, better benefits, and better working conditions. So, you know, when we talk about recruitment and retention and turnover, they are all impacted by staff qualifications, career pathways, access to training, supports like coaching, and obviously compensation. And that's why it is so important that states understand how each of these are interrelated, and they have to become aware of each element's place in an overall framework. Many states have documented their challenges in workforce studies, and these may collect data on retention issues. So 40 states now have professional development registries, but their data is often inadequate to capture turnover, as their data is usually dependent on the individual to enter their information. Many states rely on their child care resource and referral centers, or more recently, on staffed family child care home networks to recruit new providers. And we have the apprenticeship programs supported by the United States Department of Labor that have been successfully implemented in several states, but the administrative oversight and the funding required of the participating providers has really been a challenge for some states. Next slide.
Nancy, both of the resources that we highlighted today touch on the challenges that states are currently facing in their work with their workforce and professional development. And there's many more resources that the TA specialists at the PDG Birth through 5 TA Center can point you to as you identify your state's priorities in advancing the profession. This first resource on this slide is the Professional Development System Framework from the National Center on Early Childhood Development, Teaching and Learning. It touches on many of the issues that were addressed that will be addressed in the breakout sessions, including workforce data systems, such as registries and workforce studies. It also provides a lot of additional resources that should be helpful. Next slide. I would also encourage you to take a look at the slides listed here, including North Carolina's collection of briefs based on their 2019 workforce study. We provided the link to the one on staff turnover, but there are others that address compensation, education levels, and family child care. Next slide. Well, our workforce overview time is about over. We hope that we've stimulated your thinking about each of the elements needed in a professional development framework. In your next session, you'll hear from states who've actually tackled these challenging topics, and there will be a facilitator to help you in your discussion of ideas, opportunities, barriers, and needed supports in these areas. I know that you're going to enjoy hearing from your colleagues, and we hope that you learn a lot, meet some new friends, and identify some additional ways the TA Center can assist you. Next slide. You may recall from your experience in the past 2 days that to get to the next session, you go to your My Schedule tab that appears right above the screen of the full group session. Only the sessions you sign up for will be shown there. So you just select the one that is shown in that time slot and then click the Join Session button, which will appear at the top in the middle of the banner. you can head on over to that session now and click the join button. It'll be available for you. The formal presentation will not begin until the hour, but up until that time, you'll be able to chat with the other people who are attending that session. Nancy, do you have anything else to add?
No, I'm just excited to get to hear from you all now about what you're doing to address all these really challenging elements of a framework. So have a good rest of the afternoon.
Thank you.